He didn't know that Thursday evening would change everything. Looking back now, he can still remember how the rain felt against his jacket, how the streetlights reflected off the wet pavement like scattered stars. He almost didn't go to that art gallery. His friend had been pestering him for weeks, saying he needed to get out more. That work wasn't everything. He'd finally given in just to stop the constant messages. The gallery was small, tucked between a coffee shop and an old bookstore in the downtown area. When he walked in, shaking the rain from his hair, the place was already crowded with people holding wine glasses and pretending to understand abstract art. He grabbed a drink from the table near the entrance and planned to stay exactly 30 minutes. Just enough time to show his face and leave without seeming rude. That's when he saw her. She was standing in front of a painting, completely absorbed in it. While everyone else was chatting and networking, she seemed genuinely interested in the art. Her head was tilted slightly to one side, and she had this small smile on her face like the painting was telling her a secret. He found himself walking over without really deciding to. "Do you actually like it, or are you just being polite?" he asked, immediately regretting how that sounded. She turned to look at him, and he noticed her eyes first. They were warm and kind, the type of eyes that made you feel like you'd known someone for years instead of seconds. "I love it," she said simply. "See how the colors blend here? The artist probably spent hours getting that transition just right. Most people walk right past it, but this is my favorite piece in the whole show." They started talking, and somehow 30 minutes turned into an hour, then 2, then 3. Her name was Lily, and she worked restoring old paintings at a museum across town. She talked about her work with such passion that he couldn't help but get interested, even though he'd never cared much about art before. She told him about bringing forgotten masterpieces back to life, about the satisfaction of revealing colors that hadn't been seen in decades. He told her about his own work, designing buildings and spaces, though he felt less enthusiastic about it lately. "I used to love it," he admitted. "But somewhere along the way it became just a job, you know? I design what clients want, not what I dream about anymore." "What did you dream about?" she asked, and the way she said it made him believe she really wanted to know. "Libraries," he said, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I always wanted to design libraries, places where people could escape and discover new worlds. Sounds kind of silly when I say it out loud." "That's not silly at all," she said softly. "That's beautiful." When he finally looked at his phone, he was shocked to see it was past 11. The gallery had mostly cleared out, and the staff were giving them polite looks that suggested it was time to leave. They walked out together into the rain, which had softened to a gentle drizzle. "I don't usually do this," he said, pulling out his phone with slightly shaking hands. "But could I get your number? I'd really like to talk to you again." She smiled and took his phone, typing in her number. "I don't usually do this either," she said, "but I'm glad I am." He texted her the next morning, then immediately worried he'd done it too soon. Should he have waited a day, 2 days? But she replied within minutes, and they ended up texting throughout the entire day. By evening, they'd made plans for dinner that weekend. Their first official date was at a small Italian restaurant she knew about. The kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in old wine bottles. They ordered pasta and talked for so long that they closed the restaurant down. The waiter had to politely remind them that the kitchen had been closed for an hour. Everything felt easy with her. He didn't have to think about what to say or worry about awkward silences. They talked about everything from childhood memories to fears about the future. She told him about growing up in a small town and always feeling like she didn't quite fit in. He told her about the pressure of family expectations and trying to be successful while feeling empty inside. "You get it," he said at one point. "Most people don't get it." "I know," she said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I get you." By their third date, he was completely hooked. She had this laugh that started quiet and then built up until her whole face lit up. He found himself trying to make her laugh just to see that expression. They discovered they both loved old bookstores, the kind that smelled like paper and time. They'd spend hours browsing, recommending books to each other, reading passages out loud. 3 weeks in, she took him to her favorite spot in the city. It was a hidden garden tucked behind an old church, the kind of place you'd walk past 100 times without noticing. There were flowers everywhere, and a small fountain that gurgled peacefully in the center. They sat on a bench, and she told him this was where she came when life felt overwhelming. "I've never shown anyone this place before," she admitted. "It felt too personal, too private, but I wanted to share it with you. He kissed her then, soft and gentle, and she kissed him back. The world seemed to pause for that moment, like everything had been leading to this. After that, they were inseparable. He found himself thinking about her constantly. During meetings at work, he'd catch himself smiling at a memory of something she'd said. His friends noticed the change in him. He was lighter somehow, happier. The emptiness he'd felt for so long started to fill with something warm and real. They fell into their own rhythm. Friday evenings became their time to explore new restaurants. Saturday mornings, they'd sleep in late and then get coffee from the cafe down the street. Sunday afternoons were for museums and art galleries, where she'd teach him to really see the paintings, not just look at them. She started leaving little notes for him. He'd find them in his coat pocket or tucked into his work bag. Just simple things like "thinking of you" or "have a great day" with a tiny sketch of a heart or a flower. He kept every single one in a drawer at his apartment. One evening, about 2 months after they met, they were walking home from a jazz concert. The music had been incredible, the kind that makes you feel alive. The streets were quiet, lit only by streetlights and the glow from apartment windows. He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I'm falling in love with you," he said, the words coming out before he could overthink them. "Actually, I think I already have." She looked up at him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Good," she said, breaking into that beautiful smile. "Because I'm falling in love with you too." He couldn't remember ever feeling this happy. Not when he got his promotion, not when he bought his first car, not at any other point in his 29 years. This was different. This was the kind of happiness that made everything else make sense. They'd talk about the future sometimes, carefully, not wanting to jinx anything, but the possibility was there, hanging in the air between them. A future together, maybe living together someday, maybe more than that. His apartment started to feel different. She'd leave a hair tie on his bathroom counter or a book on his coffee table, and instead of bothering him, it made the place feel more like home. He loved finding traces of her in his space, evidence that she was becoming part of his life. Looking back now, those first few months were perfect. Not perfect in the sense that nothing went wrong, but perfect in the way they handled everything together. They had their first argument about something stupid, he couldn't even remember what, and learned how to apologize and forgive. They met each other's friends and fit seamlessly into each other's lives. He remembered thinking late one night as she slept beside him that this was it. This was the person he'd been waiting for without even knowing he was waiting. The person who made him want to be better, do better, dream bigger. If someone had told him then how it would end, he wouldn't have believed them. Couldn't have believed them, because in that moment, with her hand in his and the future stretching out ahead of them bright and full of promise, nothing seemed impossible. 6 months flew by like 6 days. They'd reached that point where being apart felt wrong, unnatural. He'd be at work and catch himself counting down the hours until he could see her again. She told him she felt the same way. So when his lease came up for renewal, the conversation happened naturally, almost without them needing to discuss it. "What if you just didn't renew?" she suggested one evening over dinner. "What if you moved in with me instead?" His heart did this little flip in his chest. "Are you sure? That's a big step." "I'm sure," she said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want this." Moving day was chaos. Boxes everywhere. Furniture that wouldn't fit through doorways, both of them exhausted and sweaty. But even in the middle of the mess, he felt this overwhelming sense of rightness. This was where he belonged. The apartment wasn't big, but it had these huge windows that let in beautiful natural light. She'd already lived there for 2 years, so it had her personality all over it. Plants on every surface, art prints on the walls, bookshelves overflowing with novels and art history books. "We need to make space for your stuff too," she insisted. "This is our place now, not just mine." They spent that first week rearranging everything, finding spots for his books next to hers, hanging some of his architectural sketches alongside her art prints. It was like watching 2 lives blend into one, and it felt beautiful. Sunday mornings became sacred. They'd wake up slow, no alarms, and make coffee together in the tiny kitchen. Then they'd sit by the big window with their mugs, reading the newspaper or just talking about nothing important. Those quiet moments became his favorite part of the week. No pressure, no expectations, just the two of them existing in the same space. Living together revealed all the little things about each other. He learned that she hummed while doing dishes. She discovered that he talked in his sleep sometimes. He found out she was terrible at remembering to buy milk. She learned he had this habit of leaving cabinet doors open. Instead of being annoying, these quirks became endearing. They were the details that made them real. She changed him in ways he didn't expect. Before her, he'd stopped caring about his work beyond the paycheck. But she encouraged him to dream again. "Why don't you sketch something just for you?" she'd suggest. "Not for a client, not for anyone else. What would you design if you could design anything?" He started staying up late, drawing libraries and community centers and spaces he'd only imagined before. She'd sit beside him, working on her own projects, and they'd share that comfortable silence of two people creating side by side. For the first time in years, he felt that spark again, that excitement about his work. "You're talented," she told him one night, looking at his sketches. "Really talented. Don't let corporate work kill that." She taught him other things too, how to see beauty in imperfect things, how a chipped mug could have more character than a new one, how the cracks in old paintings told stories just as important as the images themselves. She had this way of finding magic in ordinary moments, and slowly, he started seeing the world through her eyes. They created their own traditions without really planning to. Friday nights became movie night. They'd make pizza from scratch, even though his dough never quite turned out right, and her sauce was always too garlicky. It didn't matter. They'd eat their imperfect pizza and watch old films, curled up together on the couch. Weekends, when they both had time off, they'd drive to small coastal towns. Just pack a bag and go, no real plan or destination. They'd explore antique shops and walk along beaches and eat at local diners. Those little trips became some of his best memories. Her laughing as the wind messed up her hair. Both of them getting lost and not caring. Finding perfect seashells and pocketing them like treasures. The sticky notes continued, but now they were everywhere. He'd find them in the bathroom mirror in his lunch bag, tucked into books he was reading, little messages and tiny drawings that made him smile throughout the day. He started leaving notes for her too, though his drawings were terrible compared to hers. She kept every single one, though stuck them on the fridge until there was barely any white space left. "Our fridge looks ridiculous," he said one day. "Our fridge looks loved," she corrected him. Meeting each other's families was nerve-wracking, but went better than he'd hoped. Thanksgiving at his parents' house, she fit right in. His mom loved her immediately, and by the end of the night they were sharing recipes and laughing like old friends. His dad, usually reserved, warmed up to her too. "She's good for you," his dad told him quietly. "I can see it in your eyes. You're happy." Christmas with her family felt just as natural. Her parents welcomed him like he'd always been part of the family. Her younger brother taught him to play video games, and her grandmother insisted on teaching him to cook her famous pasta sauce. "If you're going to be part of this family," her grandmother said with a wink, "you need to know how to cook proper food." The future stopped being this scary, abstract thing and became something they could talk about openly. Lying in bed at night, they'd dream out loud, maybe buying a house someday, something with a yard, maybe getting a dog, maybe kids, though they both agreed they weren't quite ready for that yet. But the possibility was there, glowing warm between them. Their one-year anniversary felt like a milestone worth celebrating. He spent weeks planning, wanting it to be perfect. He designed and built a bookshelf specifically for her art books, each shelf the exact height to fit her oversized collection. He stained it a deep cherry color and carved a tiny heart into the back where only she would see it. When he gave it to her, she cried. Actually cried. "This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me," she said, running her hands over the smooth wood. "You made this for me." With your own hands, her gift to him was just as meaningful. She'd found an old architectural sketch he'd done years ago, back when he was still in school and full of dreams. He'd forgotten about it, but somehow she'd discovered it among his things. She'd restored the yellowed paper and put it in a beautiful antique frame she'd refurbished herself. "This is who you are," she said, pointing at the sketch. "This dreamer, this creator. Don't ever forget that." They hung both pieces in the living room side by side, his bookshelf full of her books, her framed reminder of his dreams. It felt symbolic somehow, their lives intertwined but still supporting each other's individual passions. Life felt complete in a way he'd never experienced before. Not perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, but real and solid and right. He'd wake up in the middle of the night sometimes just to watch her sleep, overwhelmed by the gratitude of having found her. This person who understood him, challenged him, loved him. His friends noticed the change in him. "You're different," His best friend said one evening over drinks. Settled, content, it's good to see. He was different. She'd helped him become a better version of himself, more patient, more present, more willing to take chances. She'd helped him remember why he'd fallen in love with architecture in the first place, helped him reconnect with parts of himself he'd buried under work stress and routine. They'd have lazy Sundays where they didn't leave the apartment at all. Just cooked together, listened to music, talked about everything and nothing. Those days felt like gifts. No pressure to be anywhere or do anything, just existing together in their little bubble of happiness. Looking back now, he wishes he'd paid more attention. Wishes he'd savored those moments even more than he did, because at the time he thought they'd last forever. He thought this was just the beginning, that they had decades ahead of them to create more memories, more traditions, more lazy Sundays. He thought love was enough. That if two people cared about each other deeply enough, wanted it badly enough, nothing could break them apart. He'd learned soon enough how wrong he was. But in those moments, in that beautiful year of building a life together, everything felt unshakable. Their foundation felt solid. Their future felt certain. If only he'd known that sometimes even the strongest foundations can crack. It started so small that he almost didn't notice. Little changes that seemed meaningless at first. She'd come home from work and go straight to the bedroom to change, when she used to greet him with a kiss first. She'd be on her phone more during dinner, scrolling through something he couldn't see. When he asked about her day, her answers got shorter, less detailed. How was work? He'd ask. Fine, she'd say. Same as always. Before, she would have told him everything. About the painting she was working on, the colleague who said something funny, the challenge she was trying to solve. Now she gave him one-word answers and changed the subject. He told himself she was just tired. Work had been stressful for her lately. The museum was short-staffed and she'd been taking on extra projects. It made sense that she'd be exhausted when she got home. He tried to be understanding, to give her space when she needed it. But the space kept growing. The sticky notes stopped appearing. He didn't realize it at first. Then one day he reached for his coffee and noticed the fridge was bare. All those little messages they'd accumulated over months, she'd taken them down. When he asked about it, she shrugged. They were getting cluttered, she said. I cleaned up a bit. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a punch to his chest. Those notes had been their thing, their way of staying connected throughout the day, and she'd just thrown them away without mentioning it. The Friday movie night started to slip. She'd say she was too tired, or she had work to finish, or she just wasn't in the mood. He'd make the pizza anyway, hoping she'd change her mind, but she'd stay in the bedroom with her laptop. He'd eat alone on the couch, the silence of the apartment pressing down on him. Their Sunday mornings changed too. She started waking up earlier, going for runs before he got up. By the time he woke, she'd already be showered and working on something, headphones in, clearly not wanting to be disturbed. Those sacred mornings of coffee and conversation just disappeared, and he didn't know how to get them back. He tried talking to her about it. Is everything okay? He'd ask. You seem distant lately. I'm fine, she'd insist. Just busy. You're overthinking things. But he wasn't overthinking. He could feel her pulling away, like watching someone walk backward in slow motion. Every day she was a little further from him. Every day the gap between them grew wider. She started working later hours. Some nights she wouldn't get home until 9 or 10, when she used to be home by 6. She'd say there was a big project, an important deadline. He wanted to believe her, but something felt off. The way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes when she explained. The way she'd shower as soon as she got home. Even on days when she claimed she'd been sitting at a desk all day. The doubt crept in like poison. He hated himself for it, but he couldn't help wondering. Was there someone else? Was she staying late at work, or was she somewhere else entirely? He'd never been the jealous type before, but desperation makes you think crazy things. He tried to fix it. Planned a surprise weekend getaway to one of those coastal towns they used to love exploring. Booked a nice bed and breakfast. Made restaurant reservations, cleared both their schedules. She agreed to go, but the whole weekend felt forced. They went through the motions of having fun, but the ease was gone. Walking on the beach, there was this awkward distance between them. They didn't hold hands like they used to. Remember the last time we came to the coast? He tried, desperate to connect. We found that antique shop with all the old maps. Yeah, she said, but her voice was flat. That was nice, that was it. No elaboration, no shared memory, no warmth. Just acknowledgement and silence. At dinner that night, he watched her push food around her plate, barely eating. She kept checking her phone, and when he called her on it, she got defensive. "I'm allowed to check my phone," she snapped. "I know. I just thought we were supposed to be spending time together." "We are spending time together. I'm here, aren't I?" But she wasn't, not really. Her body was there, sitting across from him, but the person he loved felt 1,000 miles away. The drive home was quiet. He tried to put on music she liked, but she asked him to turn it off, said she had a headache. They drove 2 hours in silence, and it was the loneliest he'd ever felt. Even being alone was better than this, being together but separate, close but unreachable. Back at the apartment, things got worse. They stopped talking about anything real. Conversations became purely practical. "Did you pay the electric bill? We need more coffee. Can you grab milk on your way home?" They were roommates, not partners. Strangers sharing space. The bed became a battleground of distance. She'd sleep on her side, turned away from him as far to the edge as she could get without falling off. He'd lie awake, staring at her back, wanting to reach out but afraid to. The few times he tried to initiate any kind of intimacy, she'd make excuses. Too tired. Not feeling well. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Arguments started over stupid things. He'd leave a dish in the sink and she'd snap at him. She'd forget to pick up his dry cleaning like she'd promised, and he'd get frustrated. They were fighting about dishes and laundry and whose turn it was to take out the trash, but really they were fighting about everything else they couldn't say. "What's happening to us?" he finally asked one night after a particularly bitter argument about nothing. "I don't know," she said, and she sounded tired, so tired. "I don't know anymore." He suggested couples therapy. The moment the words left his mouth, he saw her face close off. "We don't need therapy," she said firmly. "We're fine." "We're not fine," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We haven't been fine for weeks. Maybe months. I don't even know anymore. Therapy is for people with serious problems. We're just going through a rough patch." But it didn't feel like a rough patch. Rough patches you can see the other side of. This felt like drowning in slow motion, watching the surface get further away and not knowing how to swim back up. He started noticing other things. She'd changed her phone password. She never used to have one, but now her screen was locked. When he asked why, she said something about work security, but it felt like a lie. She'd take calls in the other room, speaking in hushed tones he couldn't hear. She started closing her laptop quickly whenever he entered the room. The worst part was feeling like he was losing his mind. Was he being paranoid? Was he overreacting? She kept saying everything was fine, that he was imagining problems that didn't exist. But his gut told him different. You don't live with someone for 1.5 years and not know when something fundamental has changed. He asked their friends if they'd noticed anything. "Is she okay? Has she said anything to you?" But they all said the same thing. As far as they knew, everything was fine. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe he needed to relax and stop looking for problems, but he wasn't looking for problems. The problems were finding him. Every day brought some new small hurt. She forgot his birthday cake when she went grocery shopping. She didn't laugh at his jokes anymore. She stopped asking about his work, stopped caring about the projects he was excited about. It was like she'd already left in every way except physically. One night he came home to find her sitting in the dark, just staring out the window. The apartment was silent except for the sound of traffic below. He flipped on the light and she jumped like she'd forgotten he lived there. "Hey," he said softly. "What's wrong?" And then she started crying. Not just tears, but real sobbing, her whole body shaking with it. He rushed over, tried to put his arms around her, but she pulled away. "What is it?" he asked, panic rising in his chest. "Talk to me, please." "I can't," she choked out between sobs. "I can't do this right now." "Can't do what?" "Talk to me, we're supposed to be partners. We're supposed to share things." "I need space," she said, wiping at her tears. "I just need space to think." "Think about what?" "About us." She wouldn't answer. Just kept crying, and he felt completely helpless. He wanted to fix whatever was broken, but you can't fix what you don't understand. You can't fight an enemy you can't see. The next 2 weeks were the worst. She withdrew completely, treating him like a polite stranger. They'd pass each other in the apartment with mumbled hellos and forced smiles. She'd come home late, go straight to bed. He'd wake up and she'd already be gone. They were two ghosts haunting the same space, never quite intersecting. He tried everything he could think of. left her favorite flowers on the table, cooked her favorite meals, wrote her a letter telling her how much he loved her, how much he wanted to work through whatever this was. She thanked him politely for all of it, but nothing changed. The distance remained. Looking back, he wonders if he should have pushed harder, demanded answers, refused to let her hide in silence. But he was so afraid of pushing her further away that he gave her the space she asked for. He thought if he was patient enough, understanding enough, loving enough, she'd come back to him. That whatever she was going through, she'd work through it and they'd find their way back. He was wrong. The space he gave her wasn't healing anything. It was just giving her room to build walls he couldn't climb. It was a Sunday evening. He remembers that detail clearly because Sundays used to be their day, and now it just felt cruel that she chose a Sunday for this. The apartment was quiet. They'd spent most of the day in separate rooms, her in the bedroom, him on the couch pretending to watch television. Around 7, she emerged from the bedroom. He could tell from her face that something was different. She looked tired but also resolved, like she'd made a decision about something. His stomach dropped before she even opened her mouth. "We need to talk," she said, and those 4 words felt like a death sentence. He muted the television. "Okay." She sat on the chair across from him, not beside him on the couch like she would have before. That distance told him everything he needed to know, but he waited for her to speak, hoping somehow he was wrong. "I can't do this anymore," she said quietly. Her hands were shaking slightly, clasped tight in her lap. "Do what?" he asked, even though he knew. Some part of him needed to make her say it out loud. "This. Us. I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not." "Then let's fix it," he said, leaning forward. "Whatever it is, we can work through it. We can go to therapy, we can talk, we can—" "It's not about fixing," she interrupted, and there were tears in her eyes now. "It's about how I feel. Or don't feel anymore." The words hit him like physical blows. "What do you mean?" She took a shaky breath. "I love you, I do. But I'm not in love with you anymore. And I've tried. I've tried so hard to get that feeling back, but it's just gone." "Gone," he repeated numbly. "Just like that? Feelings don't just disappear, Lily." "They do," she said, wiping at her eyes. "Or they did for me. I don't know how to explain it better than that. We've grown apart. We want different things." "This isn't fair to either of us. Different things?" "What are you talking about? We want the same things. We've talked about our future." "We talked about a future," she corrected, "but I don't think either of us really believed in it. Not deep down. We were playing house, but it wasn't real." "It was real to me," he said, and he could hear his voice breaking. "Every second of it was real." "How can you say it wasn't real?" "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant we're not right for each other. Not in the way we need to be. And staying together when I feel like this, it's not fair to you." He stood up, started pacing. He couldn't sit still, couldn't process what she was saying. "So what, you just decided? Without talking to me? Without trying to work on it together?" "I have been trying," she said, her voice rising slightly. "For months I've been trying. But you can't try yourself into loving someone the way they deserve to be loved. It doesn't work like that. When did this happen? When did you stop loving me?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't think there was one moment. It was gradual. One day I realized I was staying because it was comfortable, because leaving would be hard, not because I wanted to be here." Each word was another cut, deeper than the last. He sat back down, his legs suddenly unable to hold him. "Is there someone else?" "No," she said firmly, looking him in the eyes. "There's no one else. This is about us, about how I feel. About how I don't feel. So what now? You just leave? We just end this?" "I've already looked at apartments," she admitted, and that hurt worst of all. She'd been planning this, preparing for it, while he'd been hoping things would get better. She closed the door behind her, and my heart forgot its rhythm.